All right, welcome back inside our proactive newsroom. And joining me now is Jane Edmondson. She is the head of thematic strategy for Vetify. And Jane, it's great to see you again. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks very much.
Yeah, excited to have you along as we talk a bit about the future of defense ETF. And obviously, since last time you and I chatted, there's been a couple of things happening in the United States, one of which Donald Trump has won the US election. So he is the president elect, will be the president in January. I'm wondering what implications you think this would have on NATO and defense investments.
Yeah, that's certainly what's up on everybody's mind right now. And as with any major change, it's created a lot of uncertainty regarding NATO and the US's role in NATO going forward. But Trump has indicated that the US will stay in NATO as long as other NATO countries pay their fair share. So it seems unlikely that the US will pull out of NATO entirely. But even if it stays, it probably will have a reduced role. And part of that reason for, staying the course is that the US has a big defense interest. They have a lot of large US defense contracts. So they're not going to be abandoning European concerns entirely. US defense companies still remain the leaders in terms of technology and defense systems. So Europe can't abandon the US either. But currently, there's 23 out of the 32 NATO countries that are meeting the 2% of GDP targets as of last June. So Trump's tough rhetoric did force a lot of these European countries to step up and meet those requirements. And they have lit a fire under European members to become more autonomous. And the truth is that it's one thing to talk about European autonomy and unity, but it's much harder to implement and operationalize it. So that's going to take a lot of time. But in the meantime, another cause for uncertainty among NATO's European members is that Trump vowed to end the Russian war with Ukraine within 24 hours of becoming president. So I don't know if that's going to happen, but many in Europe are concerned, obviously, that the US could strike a deal at the expense of Europe, or at least that the US is going to scale back its support for Ukraine, leaving Europe basically to fend for itself. So lots of uncertainty. Obviously, people are trying to figure out how to navigate the situation.
Yeah, all over the world, in fact. As far as defense spending itself, what does this sort of mean for that and European defense spending specifically?
Yeah, so actually, Russia just announced that its defense budget for 2025 is going to be as high as 126 billion, which represents a third of their government spending. So Russia is going all in with spending, which will force, I think, some of the EU members to do the same. They have they're nearing a deal to create a $1.6 billion defense budget fund to help bolster its capabilities and then also support Ukraine over the next 3 years. So I think the answer is that we can expect more spending across the board in Europe, in Russia, just globally, in response to all these things happening in the world. And the trend is not just about more spending in response to uh, in response to all these rising conflicts. There's been years of spending neglect, and now there's also the need to modernize defense forces with new technologies like drones and robotics and AI. And all those technologies will help lower costs in the long run and increase efficiency. So there's a need to do that and also reduce the need for more military personnel. And another important theme in European defense is the need for more partnerships at the country level and the industry level. European countries need to work together and not just go off and do their own thing. And so at the country level, we've seen some partnerships. Just recently in October, Germany and the UK announced a partnership to cooperate. At the industry level, Leonardo and Rheinmetall, an Italian and German company, announced that they're going into a joint venture that was also announced in October. And then even collaboration between US and European companies, Rheinmetall and Lockheed Martin signed an agreement to partner on a big contract in June.
Hmm. Lots going on for sure. Let's talk about another part of defense, and that is the cyber defense. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who've heard stories recently, and in fact, last couple of years about these big cyber threats that we're facing right now. Lots of spending going on in that department as well.
Yeah, and one of the unique aspects of our NATO Future Defense UCITS ETF index is that it does include cyber defense exposure. And you're absolutely correct. Cyber is going to be a big beneficiary of spending in the next few years due to these rising challenges. And in fact, Gartner is projecting, I think, a 15% increase in spending, which equates to about $212 billion next year. And part of this is in response to, all these AI enhanced threats and then also risk posed by APIs as well.
Yeah. So all in all, it looks like it's a very positive outlook for defense and defense stocks in 2025. Is that what you're seeing as well?
Yeah, I think for the most part, obviously the Trump election has created both some opportunities and some uncertainty as well. On the positive side, I think we're going to continue to see high levels of defense spending. That will continue, especially in Europe, as it increases its sovereignty and autonomy, and they work together more collaboratively as part of NATO to try to catch up on defense spending and then also replenish and modernize their defense forces. And the Trump administration will also be under pressure to retain large U.S. defense contracts and continue to support domestic defense. They were big proponents of spending on defense in the last administration, so that's something that we expect to see continue. On the negative side, there is this new Trump Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. So they're looking for places to cut. There's also the prospects of trade tariffs. And then, of course, there's probably going to be decreased level of U.S. involvement with NATO. So that's heightened some of the uncertainty. But, there's going to be some uncertainty in the details, but I think the overall trend is still that there's going to be record levels of defense spending, and companies are reaping record earnings results. There's order backlogs after years of spending neglect, and there's still the need for modernization and scale. So technology spending on things like AI, drones, and cyber defense will still be key beneficiaries of the spending going forward. And modern defense solutions are really needed to help these countries scale, become more efficient, and prevent them from having to basically have more military personnel.
Absolutely. Well, one thing for sure, 2025 will not be boring. We know that. So there you have it. Jane, thanks so much. Great to catch up with you again. I really appreciate the time.
Thank you very much, Steve.
All right, there's Jane Edmondson. She is the head of thematic strategy for Vetify.